humans, we've been programmed to fear absolutely everything. So, you know, we're scared to park in the wrong space. And the beings were basically saying to us, you know, you've given it, you know, they actually said that humans and other beings, oneness, created this illusion ourselves. And they said, we've created it, you created it, you are part of it, we're part of it, we all created it. It's not that we created it or you created it, we all created it as a never-ending story. And they said that what's this newness that's coming, this, you know, shifting consciousness, which is already happening. And they said there's going to be more beings interacting with humans' realities, which is already happening. And it's going to be different.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the conversations, and send me your comments or your emails if you want to discuss some of the topics that we talk about in these conversations further. Or join our online group, the Inner Sanctum, where we really expand on some of these topics that we talk about on the show. Today I have a wonderful experiencer, a wonderful lady to introduce you to. Her name is Annette Williamson. Welcome to the show, Annette.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you, Karen.
Annette is over there in the UK, and she's had some amazing experiences with some incredible information. Some of you have been listening to me already talk about it in previous shows. I've mentioned you a few times. I said I've got this lady coming up and she had these beings. Anyway, let me just read a little bit about Annette to give you an idea of who she is and what we're going to talk about today. A mother and grandmother, Annette Williamson is from London, UK. Over her life, she's been on a search for more meaning, asking questions like, why am I here and how are we here as humans? This took her younger self on a journey through different religions, some mythology, and many unexplained things. Annette always had a feeling she was looking for something but never knew exactly what that was. In 2015, her father was diagnosed with bowel cancer, and Annette spent many months taking him for chemo sessions. During this time, they talked about the afterlife with a hoping or a gut feeling of its existence. Her father left this reality in early October 2017. And on October 16th, 2017, Annette's friend Zoe experienced full contact with 3 small off-world beings in her home. On the 18th of October, when Annette visited Zoe's house, she could perceive an energy as Zoe spoke to them telepathically and communicated messages. For 3 months, the beings communicated to them both via Zoe. And then when Annette trusted this phenomena enough, she too began telepathic communication with these beings. Both Zoe and Annette are dyslexic, but Annette kept a record of their daily conversations. The beings left in early January 2018 to visit other humans, they said, to share their messages. But Annette still can communicate with them today, as Zoe can. It's just that they don't kind of show up the same way as they did in that time period, right? Yes, so they came and they had many, many messages to share. Do you want to just go through how it all began, like your experience with it?
Yeah. Well, it really started 2 years ago on the 18th for me, but I guess on the 16th of October for Zoe. I hadn't seen her prior to that for a good couple of years because I'd spent the time with my dad and, you know, you do your thing. So I hadn't spoken to her for a couple of years. And then one morning, well, it happened to be the 18th, I got up and looked at my Facebook, and there Zoe had put up a picture of this little being with a big head, there's no face features, 2 arms and 2 legs, and it just had the caption, "Humans, are you ready?" at the top of it. And I remember thinking, oh, this is different. And so I phoned her and I said, oh, you know, what's going on, really? And how you been? And she just, really more what's going on. And she said, oh, I had, my alien family came to see me on Saturday. That's what she said. And I was just remember thinking, wow. And I thought, oh, and I said, can I come round and see you like later on? Can you tell me all about it? It was so interesting. And she went, yep. So that evening, about 6 o'clock, I went round to her house. And I remember we were sitting in the front room and just having a cup of tea. And she was relaying to me that, you know, the beings to come and just things that how it first happened. And then I remember her just sort of freezing, literally freezing. And I was sitting opposite her and she was looking behind me and she just said, they're here. And I looked around there, I couldn't see anything, but I could tell by her body language that she was actually really quite scared, because she only moved her eyes at that point, because it was still very new now, I know. So she literally moved her eyes to the sort of the hallway and she said, they're here. And I went, okay. And then she said, they want to speak to you. And again, I just remember saying, okay. And then they actually, the first words, so they were speaking, so we could see them. And they took form, like I say, of 3 small beings, and they would talk to her. She says the way she describes it now is they talked to her and she caught it in consciousness. But at the time, I remember we were describing it as telepathically, because that's the only words that we had. So they were talking in her thoughts, and then she was saying it to me. Mm-hmm. So the first thing they said was, I remember them saying, haven't you had enough yet? That was the first thing they said to me. Haven't you had enough yet? Yeah. And I thought, I have no idea, Karen, what they were talking about.
I do.
Really, well, you do, because you're an experienced person.
Makes me laugh. Makes me laugh. Haven't you had enough yet?
I know, it's like they're joking with me now, but at the time I really had no idea. So they started that conversation, and then they kind of jumped a little. I mean, I remember going, oh, I don't know what we're talking about. And I remember thinking about my dating habits or something. So, I mean, it wasn't anything to do with what they were doing.
Haven't you had enough of bad dates?
You know, seriously, it was sort of that's where I was at, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
It is funny now, even though I laugh at it now. But yeah, looking back, then they asked us, then they actually said to me, what do you think, what do you humans, because they would always say humans, they said, what does, and never do, they said, what does you humans think happens when you pick a flower? And I remember thinking, and I remember going to Zoe, because she was talking back to me as well as relaying their conversation. So she looked at me and I said, but it dies in compost. And they went, no, nothing dies. Energy can't die, it can only change form. And then they spoke. So they stayed for an hour, that first hour. And I have got everything written down, as you said. But I remember them talking about that. They said that, and then they started talking about multi-dimensions, things that I'd never even heard of before. So lots of different things in a very short period of time. And then they left, literally, as far as they came, they left. She said, they're not here no more, they've gone. And I remember we were just sort of sitting there like, wow. And I remember, I remember leaving the house, driving home, feeling like, I don't know, shock is any word. I don't even know I can even put the words on it. Got home. And then before I'd got home, my phone had already started to bing, bing, bing. And I got home and I had these messages, and it started with my friend Zoe. She said, the beings are still, or they've come back, and they want to ask you something. And then the message would then be from the beings, and it'd actually say from the beings, and then the message. And it might be a message, or it would be a question, or and really that's how it rolled for the first 3 months, with and with lots of other stuff as well happened to us separately as well at the same time. There's lots going on.
Wow. Okay, it's fabulous. I love it. It's an extraordinary story, but it's not, I can't say uncommon. I've heard stories, you know, like we've had stories like this on the show before, and I'm just having a bit of a yak with them. Like, she calls them the beings, do you have a name? And they're like going, yes, but it's not something you could understand nor repeat. I'm like, okay.
That's right, because when we asked them, are they God? And they, in that first hour, because we were asked them who they are, ask them if they're God, who are they? Mm-hmm. And they tried to give us something, but she couldn't get the name.
Yeah.
And she kept saying, she goes, I can't understand what they're saying to me. I can't understand what they're saying to me. So they dropped it and they didn't go back to it.
Yeah.
And then we just used to call them the three beings, but they'd already said to us that they are many forms to many humans, but it's consciousness. And this is the form that they've taken in our illusion.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're talking to them now, because they might go, yeah.
Well, you know what, Annette? I never know when I'm talking to people, if I'm talking directly, they say it's unimportant. Okay, there isn't whether I'm talking directly to beings or whether they're relaying to my guides and then my guides are talking to me. Like, I can't, give you 100% that I'm talking directly to them. Feels like it, but it might be relayed through the consciousness that I'm used to speaking to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
or the consciousness you are in multiple dimensions at any one time,
right?
Because that in it as well, and the way you describe it is exactly how it happens to me. As people are talking, sometimes it will just come in and exactly like they'll say, no, it doesn't matter, don't worry about that. Or explain something, they'll say, no, don't worry about that. And it's exactly the same, like, what you're saying is exactly the same. And they can come, and then it feels like they sort of come in and then they go and then they come in. But as you are much more experienced than me, I like speaking to you because it's nice to see you. And I think, oh yeah, it's new to me. I'm not used to it. So.
Yeah, I know. It when it first happens, it feels a bit freaky. And so it's great to have that confirmation when you see other people do it. It's like, oh, right, I'm not a freak. Everyone can do it, or other people can do it. Yeah, I know their energy is very matter of fact, and they come, they want to speak about messages, like they want to bring, they want to bring a message, and they don't want to. We as humans, we kind of talk a lot of fluff, like we
trying to explain something,
gossip, and we get into details which are not important to the message itself. And so they keep saying, it's not important, not important. So when I was asking them about their name, they said, it's not something that you can understand nor explain, and it's not important. They said, beings are fine, three beings are fine. All right, so one of the first messages was, are you God? Do you want to go into, because I've heard you speak about this before, that was quite fascinating what they said. Do you want to go into that in a little bit more detail?
Hydrogen and oxygen, right. So when we asked them if they were God at the beginning, as I said, Zoe couldn't catch it. And then later, how it seemed to roll was that Zoe, for the first 3 months, was channeling the messages, although I was having a lot of experiences of my own, but I didn't trust them. I didn't trust where it was coming from or what they was. So I relied on Zoe, because she actually could see them in front of her, which is the way to ask them for confirmation sometimes. So I would say, this happened to me last night. Can you ask the beings X, Y, and Z? And she would say, the beings have said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, back to me. And that went on with other things for 3 months straight until the end of January, which I felt that they were leaving, and Zoe and I had a bit of a bust up and we went our separate ways. And at that point, I remember thinking, that's it, done now. It's all over. That was my being experience, and that's the end of it. But just before we had sort of went our separate ways, I'd asked Zoe to ask the beings something. I can't remember off my head what it was, but I remember the answer, because the answer was, you ask and you will reply. And I remember getting the hump with that, first of all, because I thought, what sort of message is that? Another crypto message. What, when you get used to them, like I'm sure you do, you have conversations and laugh and joke in your mind and sort of everything. I was already getting to that point, but not quite believing it yet. And then after the 3 months, it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew until where we are today. So it was quite intense at the beginning, but yeah. It was very good. But they said, they called them carbon. That's what it was. We called them the three beings. Zoe at first was calling them God, but it didn't ever sit right with me. And I just think that's our different backgrounds. But she said she was trying to explain to me it was the oneness, and it was the oneness. And I kept calling them the three beings. I wouldn't have it. I was going, no, they're three beings. They're three alien beings. And it sunk in over a period of time. It wasn't easy for that to sink in. But they had said there are 4 building blocks for everything. And they said that's carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. And they said, if you want, you can call us Tron. But what you're saying about your being, or your whatever you want to call them, is correct. There was no name, and it was the illusion that I needed and Zoe needed for us to have in this reality, for us to connect.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that's what you ended up calling them.
We called them the 3 beings. We called them Tron. They actually called themselves the 3. If they didn't care what we called them. But that, so they had a something. Cat's tail wiggling around in the background.
She always comes sits on me when I do the shows, and when I do clients, she comes sits on me, and in the groups. I think she's like, I want to be part of this conversation too.
Definitely. You're right. They didn't care what it was, and they would call themselves Tron. They would call themselves 3 beings. They would call themselves oneness. It didn't. They would, they would, when they were actually giving me those sort of messages where they were typed out from Zoe, they would come with all different,
names.
Whatever name we felt comfortable with.
A stream of consciousness that our linear minds find hard to wrap our brains around. So, I think that many people talk to this intelligent consciousness, either in near-death experiences or in prayer, and call it God. I think that many people do, and even in near-death experiences, people see beings and they say, because to tell you the truth, this Earth experience is so polarized and so contrasting and so dense that when you meet a being that's pure positive energy, it feels so incredible and so amazing that of course you would just think this must be God, this must be what we perceive as God. So that's understandable that that feeling of love and unity feels like God, which it does, but we're all God, really. We're all an extension of the source.
They said there's no one divine being. I remember the words they said. They said there is no one divine being. There is only a collective connected oneness. And they even spoke about consciousness, and they said consciousness is just layers and layers and layers. So,
okay, what were some of the first things that they shared with you? Because they do speak, from what you've said to me, they do speak in ways that we find hard to understand because we're experiencing this reality as we experience it, as dense, as physical, as real, as tangible. And so they've come with many messages that kind of explode all that. So you've said here, they shared much about the Earth has no shape, there's no death, only dimensions, there's no time, that's all man-made. And then they talked about the hormone oxytocin upgrades, which were coming to humanity, the love gene. So let's go into the Earth has no shape.
Yeah. So that was a good one. So that came up, that actual question wasn't asked by me, that was asked by a friend of mine, because after, I think it was probably after about 2 months maybe of the beings being around, we started to, I was like complete blabbermouth, couldn't stop talking about them to everybody. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm speaking to 3 beings. I kept calling them 3 beings. Speaking to 3 beings, they're giving me all these messages, and this is what it, to everybody. When I think about it now, I just think, oh no, I mean, I would have spoken to the person.
So, Annette, you're a great messenger. That's why they chose you. All right, the Earth has no shape. What did they say about it?
So we were having a meeting. Zoe was there, the beings were there. We'd asked them to come. They said they would come. There was about 6 other people there, and we threw it open. Has anybody got any questions? And one of my friends, Michael, said, I've got a question. Is the Earth round or flat?
Right.
Ian said, the Earth isn't round or flat. Mm-hmm. They said, if you look up, it will keep going, or if you look down, it will keep going. They said the Earth has no shape. It's an illusion, and that's their words.
Yeah. Look, I understand this. I'm going to try and sort of decipher this in a way that our puny linear brains can understand. So quantum physics says everything is energy. So if everything is energy, then nothing is solid. Deepak Chopra would say the stuff of the universe is non-stuff. So we perceive this world as solid, as fixed. Yeah. And when you see energy, and energy is just movement, it's constant movement and space, like quantum science says, inside the atom, the molecule, like the the parts of the atom that create the atom are spinning around each other at, you know, incredible speeds, and they're spinning in a space that is just enormous. It's like the neutrons and electrons are like the size of an orange compared to a football field, just to give some perspective. And so there is all this space. So when you see dimensions or physicality or density from that perspective, as I imagine they can, and maybe we can too when we die and we're not looking through our physical senses, then we would understand what they're saying, that there's no shape, there's just energy and information in a matrix like a soup that is giving us this understanding of this dimension or this earth experience.
I think it's almost like each of us have our own realities that we portray out, and it crosses over and it makes this big illusion that we have, but effectively it's all actually coming out. It's all within and we're seeing it out. So you know, so, and we've all got these realities going on and they kind of collide and they cross over, but effectively they're all coming from in, out. And that was something that I took a long time for me to get my head around. So by the time we'd got to the conversations about the world, you know, the earth has no shape, I was already on board. I already understand they'd explain that to me. They'd explain how it works. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, because they went on to say, not only the earth has no shape, they actually went on to say you see planets as planets, but they're not planets. They're, and if somebody, they explain that as in, is someone's reality, their contract here in this time, this creation, mm-hmm. If they come here and it's within their contract to find another planet or to find endless planets, they will, because that's in their contract. If we choose to jump onto that reality and bring it into our reality, that's our call, that's our choice. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So they said, there is nothing, it's not there. And they said, you know, we perceive the sun as the sun, and we perceive the moon as the moon, and we feel the heat, and we feel, you know, we all do all these things. But they said, it's perception. And what it really is vibration and energy that each human, is seeing outwards like that. And I kind of used to describe it like we're all watching a film that we all wrote. And we're all taking part in it, but we all wrote it, and we're all, you know, and even down to the point where they said, I remember them saying, every thought from your mind comes from an action already told or to be done.
Okay.
Already told.
This is what I've been talking about on the last couple of shows. So say that again, and this is how I've mentioned you, because you and I got together and had a chat before the show, and of course, you know, a quick chat to meet turns into hours of yakking. And say that again. So every thought from our minds comes from action already done or told. Yeah.
You sound like me. That's how I'm just saying, even now I have to keep saying it, going, and then take it a bit at a time and go into it. But effectively, we have multi-us, and we're everywhere at once. Yet we are in this now, in this moment, remembering this now. And so what we're doing effectively is what they basically kind of said is, you've already done it. You've already done it in other dimensions. You're just bringing it into this dimension now. And things that you think as thought of a new idea, like, I'm going to do this. It's a new idea. It's not a new idea. It's something that's already in you that you've done or doing in another multi-dimension. So
yeah. You know, as I understand this, I'm having a chat with my mob about this. They've given me this analogy, and they're saying to me, we've given you this analogy before. It's like, there are no new thoughts. But there are new creations, because imagine that you can think about thought like paint colors, even though we can't perceive all the different colors because through our physical senses there are more. But let's just, as this analogy goes, just think about paint colors. So there are no new paint colors, but you can mix all these different paint colors and create new creations. So Byron Katie, one of my favorite teacher, says, you know, there are no original stressful thoughts. Like when we're in our stress, we always think it's ours and nobody's suffering like us, and it's like, oh me, it's all me, it's all me, and we get so singularly focused. And then she goes, there are no new stressful thoughts. You know, you're just kind of attached to a stressful thought that many have had, like, poor me, I'm unworthy, I'm unloved, he's left me, oh, be it did. It's like there are just millions of stressful thoughts out there that we all engage in, and none of them are ours. It's just we're just tuning into them.
So they're tuning in, and they're coming in here as well, because they're now showing me that there's something I was looking at today, and I was looking at cycles, because they were always saying it's cycles, you know. If you haven't, don't worry if you haven't done it in this life, you've done it in another life, or you're about to do it in another life.
Yeah.
Because they said it's constant cycles, and there's nothing really we've ever, if you look at humanity as we evolve and do what we're doing, it's the same cycles, and I know that everybody lives in their lives, and the only thing that really changes are outfits, and maybe we've got motorbikes instead of horses, but the actual emotion of what we experience as humans, and the emotion is always been the same on the body, which is love, hate, you know, all the stuff that it is what we've constantly been recycling, and it's just in different forms, like you said, it's different colours, all for different experiences, and it just keeps going around in circles. It's a nice way to describe it with the colours, because that's really what it is.
We're painting, we're using the colours to paint. So you said to me in the conversation we had before, which I've discussed on the show, you know, we have no free will. So as you said, they said, every thought is a remembrance of an action already done, and so therefore we have no free will. Do you want to talk about what that means?
Yeah, it's because the reason I can say that, and I mean, it's not for everybody to believe, but the reason they told me and that it stuck with me is that during that first 3 months, there was a particular day where that came to show themselves. So I'd gone to work, I'd had a very stressful day in the morning. No, that's not a lie. I'd woken up, and my daughter had sent me a message saying that she had bailiffs at her door. I've got a young daughter, she's got 2 children, and she'd got into debt with a parking ticket. Anyway, never experienced that before. I went into, you know, she's screaming down the phone saying, what shall I do? What shall I do? This is at 7:30. I also noticed that I had 3 messages from Zoe. And I thought, could be from Zoe, could be from the beings, I don't know. But I chose to not answer the beings message, because I remember thinking, can't talk to you right now, I've got to deal with my daughter. I went, had a most stressful day ever. Cut a long story short, 6 o'clock in the evening, decided to now look at the messages. So I opened them up, and the first one was sent at something like 4 a.m. in the morning, and it said, remember, all this is an illusion, something that you wanted to experience. And then about 10 minutes later, there was another one saying, keep grounded today, remember, this is something you chose. And there was a series of about 4 or 5 messages, and I remember I phoned Zoe and I said, I'm really sorry I didn't get back to you, I've only just looked at the messages. And she said they'd woken her up the night before to send them. They woke her up in dream. She said I was asleep, they came to me in dream, and they woke me up to send these to Annette. And then it described the whole day, really, because I remember thinking, had I had, first thing is, you know what's going to happen to us before it happens to us. Yeah. So that was pretty big. I remember thinking, wow, okay, so you know everything before it's going to happen to us.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, as that grew, I remember them saying that there was no, and I've got to remember the right word, because they used a specific word, and it was, there is no it's not predetermination, it was
predestined?
No, it wasn't predestined, it wasn't predetermination. There is nothing that isn't predicted. It's either predicted, or I look for the word, but basically they were saying that they know. And they said that because they said you chose it for yourself before you got, you know, you've come into this reality. And they even went,
they're talking about life planning, yeah.
They said that everybody chooses it. Everybody chooses what they want to experience. Everybody chooses the energies they want to experience it with. And it's multiple dimensions. There's so much. It's not just this, like you say, we live in this dense where we've labelled things into this is this and that's that. And if it doesn't go into that box or that box, then it can't be anything. And they blew that out the window completely with saying, no, that's not right. So that was quite interesting. The other thing is time, because that relates to it, because they said time doesn't move anywhere. it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't move anywhere. What we are in if you like, is a constant state of now, every moment. And when they were trying to explain death to us, they said, you know, if you humans like, you're already dead. They said, because there's no difference between dead and alive. It's perception of. So yeah, that was there was lots of big ones, but yeah, so they said that about there's no death. And they said, again, with time, they said all there is consciousness and layers of consciousness and multiple dimensions. And they said the only thing that moves is you in consciousness connected to any, you know, the all. They went, time doesn't go anywhere. And I thought that was quite cool. They said the other day as well, they said, you know, there's no gravity. They just popped that in the afternoon. They said, you know, remember there's no gravity. I think I was watching something on Miss Marple or something at the time, just relaxing. And they just went, remember, there's no gravity. And I just went, oh. And then it just brings me straight into a conversation.
Well, if there's, you know, I mean, if all this is an illusion, there's no nothing. It's just a dream. Look, Michael Tamora was in the Inner Sanctum, which was our online sessions, online groups, and he was talking about this, and he was saying, you know, when he died, because he's died 5 times, he was in this environment with these beings, these angelic beings, these enormous angelic beings, and he said that he perceived the amorphic unified field, the Godhead or the God consciousness or whatever you want to call it, as this place that is, you know, the true reality, and then everything outside of that is a dream, which is what these beings are saying. So everything is a dream. Like the only reality is this energy that this amorphic unified field of consciousness that we call God. And then this I don't know, energy is creating all these dimensions and planets and experiences. But what was really interesting that he said is that, look, I don't think we've got words. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But he was saying that reality can't be in this reality. There has to be like a bridge. There has to be a bridge, like which we call angels or spirit or soul, or which kind of bridges that reality and this reality, because
that bridge is going. I'm telling you, that bridge is going. That bridge is not going to be there. All humans can connect to that if they choose to. If that's
what he's saying. That he's saying that there is a bridge between that consciousness and this consciousness that we understand as soul.
Sorry, they did explain it quite well, because they did say, and I can breathe as you were talking, and I just thought, they did give me one sentence. They just said, this is the sentence. They said the only truth is what each. They said the truth is there is no truth. Only what you experience through your first eye. That means what you see right now, in the now. That's it.
Yeah.
Every moment you experience, that's the truth. While it lasts with you, it's truth, and then it's gone. And then the next moment is truth, and then it's gone. And then the next moment is truth, and it's gone. And so they broke it down like that. And they just said that little sentence, and I just thought, yep, got it. I understand that. I understand what they were trying to get across there.
So trying to put this information into useful information, it's dovetailing with being deliberate creators, that we look out into the world and we see a world that we think is happening to us, but actually we're happening to it. And so everything we're experiencing through mind and choice of thought. And like, people could be listening to this conversation, and some people could be going, yeah, I really get this. This is really making sense. And some people are going, oh, this is total rubbish. These two are mad. And so same conversation, 2 different experiences. And this is how we experience life. You know, I could look out onto the beach and see a beautiful sunset, and somebody else could look out and see stress, because there is no reality outside of the reality that you're choosing. Right. And what you're choosing is you're choosing thought, or you're choosing vibrational frequency or vibrational quality. And that's how we create our reality. So really they're kind of dovetailing with all that we've spoken about in consciousness, about creating your own reality, law of attraction. It's just that they're taking it to a level that's a bit more expanded, the conversation's a bit more expanded, and they're sort of wiping out everything that we perceive as real. No gravity, no shape, no time, no death.
And what they literally said the other day, and they said to me, does humans remember you have no age? And that was a really funny one.
I like that one.
And it made me chuckle, because I just thought, oh yeah, we haven't got an age, have we? We perceive these boxes and numbers, and we say, right, yes, I'm X amount of years old, and I'm this, and I'm doing, but it isn't. But I know what their overall feeling was, because they said, what's happening? Because they said what's going to happen is we're going to be DNA enhanced, if you like, and what we'll get to that because it's the oxytocin bit. So I'm jumping, but we don't need to jump. There's a lot in the middle. They spoke about the pineal gland. They did speak about the pineal gland. They said that atom, because they called themselves atom a couple of times, and they said atom is in each human. And I drew a little picture, I remember, at that point, and they said that all consciousness is accessible through I know it's going to sound an old cliche, through the pineal glands. And they said, all you've got to do is shut out the outside noise, visualize going through the pineal gland, ask your questions, and all your answers will be given to you, because they're already in self. They're already there. They're already there. You've just got to remember, and even down to when they were saying, when we have a contract, they were explaining that to me, and it's like they said, each contract knows what it's got to do when it's born, and that because the thought provokes action. And then they said that I've forgotten, it's gone.
Okay, let's go back to the pineal gland. So this is something I learned through theta healing, or Orion healing we called it in those days, that the pineal gland is the point where consciousness accesses the physical form, or the physical form. And what were you saying about the pineal gland? I'm now going back again.
They said that's where if you ask your questions, that they
all right. So all the answers live within. Yeah. So what they're saying is that you can access higher consciousness through contacting the pineal gland. Look, you don't actually have to visualize the pineal gland or go near it. This is just something that happens. I think that they're giving us that information, that visual, that so a lot of people ask me, in my sessions and groups, how do I hear my guidance better? And I give them a variety of questions depending on where they are at vibrationally speaking. But that is another way of doing it, is like focusing. When I take people on journeys, I take them into their third eye, which is the pineal gland. So the pineal gland lives between, if you hit the top of your head and the middle of your forehead, and you meet inside your brain, you'll find the pineal gland. So when I take people on journeys, I take them into their third eye, or the pineal gland, and take them out through their third eye. So I activate that pineal gland, and that's how we perceive messages, this is how you're receiving the information. This is how Zoe receives the information. This is how anyone does, through the pineal gland. But also, in these healing sessions years ago, we used to visualize going into the pineal gland and like turning back the clock so that you could stop aging and all sorts of things. I've done that.
All sorts of things. Yeah, have you done that?
I've done that.
Yeah, good girl. I'm
still aging.
No.
I haven't mastered it yet, let me tell you.
Oh, I can feel your energy. Your energy. It's still young. You can feel it. It doesn't age.
Yeah, well, energy doesn't age, but bodies do. I hang out with a lot of young people, and I find myself getting excited and like feeling like a teenager sometimes. And I think, God, I'm this fat old lady that feels like this teenager. Anyway, we're off track. Okay. Getting back to free will, I don't think we went into that. They said there's no free will because all thought is a memory of an action already taken. So we were discussing that with Peter Panagore in the show. He had a near-death experience, and he went back to that source of oneness, and that source of nothing, no thing. There's nothing there, like there's no thing. It's just energy and information, or God, or whatever you want to call it. And he was saying that in that place, he had access to all-knowing, infinite intelligence about everything, about the multiverse, the universe, about any dream that has been imagined through, he had access to it. So how could we come to the Earth School and learn if who we are has access to everything, because there's no time, and therefore all time's happening at once? It's already happened. So we were talking about that, and we said that, I said, oh, there's this lady coming on the show, and she said that there's no free will. But there is free will to choose, to make a choice.
Yes.
But you're choosing a different timeline that's already unfolded, that's already happened. So
they gave it to me like crossroads.
Crossroads, yeah.
They gave it to me like a crossroads, and they said that their guts and your gut feeling, your inner self, your higher self, they will give you your options, and you can go left or you can go right, but there's no right or wrong answer, and there's no right or wrong decision.
Yeah.
And you're cool whichever way you want to go. So there, and they kind of have each option covered, if you like, in the bigger picture of things. That's how it came across. Or you have got each option covered. It's your choice. You might want to go that way, or you might want to go that way. It doesn't matter. And they said that's all part of it as well. And I'm still trying to think of the word, and I'm saying, because it was predetermined, I think was the word, because I remember thinking, oh, okay, that's interesting. So everything's covered, really. That's what the impression I got. If you want to go that way, you want to go that way.
Okay, well, let me ask you, Annette, having this information about, there's no time, there's no death, there's no free will, everything's already happened, how did that change your life?
Oh, that's a good one. In small steps is the only way to describe it, because I'm learning at the moment, this is where I'm learning to be at the moment, to experience the moment in the moment. So if I get stressed at all now, I can pull myself back from it and just think, hang on a minute, this is a reality. Do you want to go down that line? Do you want to stop? You don't have to do this. You can go that way. And I'm all right with that. Whereas though before the beings came, I would have done anything for anybody, regardless if it was declaration to myself. If they asked me to do something, I felt like I had to do it for them. Or, I would get involved in things that probably I didn't need to get involved with. So there's that difference. I have always had a bit of a problem with money, as in it's never been a reality that I've actually paid any heed to at all. Apart from I know that in my early days I needed to make it to live. And I've had a lot of ill health as well in that. So the changes I would say where I am now is I was on a lot of medication for my back pain and various pains. I've stopped those. I've dealt with my pain. The pain seems to be different anyway. Maybe it's because I'm viewing it differently. Little subtle changes, things that I take everything responsibly, I suppose. If anything comes my way, I take responsibility for it and think, okay, well, I obviously wanted to experience that in some way. So let's just, go ahead and do whatever it is I've got to do and try be a nice person and, all the rest of the stuff. But there is an overwhelming urge to share. And I know that urge I've tried to control it, to ignore it, and think, right, well, I have got a choice because I don't have to share. I could do that or I could do that. But every time I think about my reality as that or that, I feel like I've done it and that this is the reality and this is where I feel happiest. So it is very new to me. And I know you are much more experienced than I, because I've literally been in this world for 2 years. So everything I'm saying to you is literally coming from the beings or consciousness. It's not coming from me.
Well,
I didn't know.
You might have only been doing it for 2 years, but you've been on an absolutely accelerated journey. Like I've been journeying through this consciousness for 30 years and it's been a much slower journey. Look, the amount of time that we're in this journey doesn't determine the amount of wisdom we gain from it. There are people waking up today that are waking up inside unbelievable exalted consciousness, and then there are some that are not. So the amount of time you've been on the journey doesn't determine, remember there is no time.
Yeah, I know.
doesn't determine the quality. You know, having this knowledge it's made you stress less, enjoy your life more, feel more connected to your source, feel more powerful, feel more centered, feel like you're living your life's purpose, feel excited about that, feeling inspired, then, you know, you're doing well. It doesn't mean that you understand it all, but if you're in that place of excitement and happiness and you feel less pressured, less stressed, you're not listening to your stressful thoughts. Like, I think that people overcompensate in helping others because they feel unworthy and they're looking for love. They're like, if I do everything for everyone, will you love me because I don't feel worthy of love? And so if you're overcoming stressful thoughts like that, then you're doing very well. Yeah.
And fear.
Fear. Yeah.
Because they say to me, never fear the outside world of you. And I used to say that to myself every day. I still do now and then. Even when I'm talking like an interview, sometimes I think, oh, should I be talking so much? You know, I feel, you know, I'm not used to doing them. I'm not used to telling everybody about me and what I've been through.
Yeah.
And there is a fear that comes to it. I think, oh, should I do it? Should I do it? Or should I? And then that constant, that it's like almost those words literally come to mind, and they're saying, never fear the outside world of you, never fear the outside world of you. Remember where you are. Remember this. Remember that. And it completely settles me straight away.
Right.
But it's still growing. It's still like, I find it absolutely amazing still. I'm blown away. I just think life is so exciting. It's exciting now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're kind of on purpose. So let me ask you, what were you doing before the beings showed up? Like, what was your day job? What was your normal daily routine?
I'd been a hairdresser.
Hairdresser.
Off and on.
Mm-hmm.
Off and on for years, more off than on. To be truthful, I had a spinal surgery when I was 21 for what was classed as a slip disc. And then I was very ill. For almost 15 years, I couldn't walk. I was very poorly. And then I had another operation in 2004, which rectified the operation from 1992. And then I was out of pain. And when I was out of pain, that's when I think I started to grow. But there's so much more to it, because obviously I asked loads of questions about that, about the pain I suffered and all the contracting, the whole.
Right. Well, let's go into healing, because they've spoken a lot about healing and you've used your own experience. Tell us what they said about your experience and about your pain and your healing.
What they were saying then, when I was experiencing pain, they gave me two sort of explanations for it. They said sometimes self will experience pain because you're not meant to be doing that, and you might need to go down another avenue, and the only way that it's going to show itself to you without someone standing in the middle floor going like that, just stop you.
Yes. Yes.
And they said that's always in it.
Yeah.
They said that rainwater, which I know, they said rainwater is very good for humans, like it is for other animals. And they said that in small amounts, it's a detox. And obviously, I wouldn't say that unless I'm not using it, because I've been drinking rainwater ever since they told me, and trying to get it into my grandchildren and anybody else that is around me every now and then.
Yeah, look, you know, it depends where the rainwater's coming from, because I tell you what, after the fires here in Australia, the rainwater is full of soot.
All right, yeah.
So it really, and you know, rainwater in a city that's full of pollution is not great either. So you have to get it from a clean source.
I asked them about pollution.
Okay, let's go back, because we're sort of skipping ahead. Let's go back to you and your pain. So they said to you, you were in pain for many years, and they said to you, it's to stop you going down a path, instead of them jumping in front of you and waving their hands and saying, no, don't make this choice, make another choice. How did that look to you? So you said that you had a operation that for a slip disc, and then after the operation you're in a lot of pain. What path do you think that was stopping you from going down?
I think I was, I know at the time I was with the wrong person, and a lot of anger, emotion. There was a lot of upset during that time, which I then now perceived as pain. But even though I can sort of take the physical away from, I can take my physical body away from the pain you know, the physical of pain now because I'm not in that amount of pain. But when I was looking back, they didn't say, oh, we gave you pain because of this. I don't know if I want to talk about it because it's all to do with my ex-partner, so they explained it like that. Let me give you another scenario.
I wouldn't say they gave you pain. You were giving yourself the pain.
Okay, yeah.
So if you want to talk about they, you could talk about your higher self, I suppose. So you were making choices that were giving you pain, and those choices were probably a dysfunctional. Look, the choices were your thoughts, right? You were like, poor me, woe's me, I'm not worthy, and then that sort of showed up as somebody that didn't treat you right because your unworthiness manifested as somebody. Yeah, and that was the pain that was manifested as physical pain, right?
I actually asked them about relationships because I had a very violent partner as well.
Right.
So
Okay.
lots of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them, I remember asking them one day, I said, when I was with him and he was causing me physical pain, does he know that he's, you know, what's going on in his mind, in his contract? Because if I say something horrible to someone, I already know before it's going to be horrible, it's going to hurt their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So I make a choice not to do it. And they said to me, and I know this might not sit with everybody, but I said to them, so when I was in that abusive relationship or I was being abused,
Mm-hmm.
what was going through the other person's mind at the time? Was they knowing they were doing something wrong? And they almost laughed at me and they said, no, because you would have asked for that beforehand. So you've got to send them love because it's not a negative or a positive. It's just an experience, but it was your experience. And you would have asked them to be in on that energy, to be on that experience. But you're right. I didn't have to have the experience if I hadn't chose to stay there as long as I had. So it all sort of rolls into one, if you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, this is a concept that I've spoken about a lot on the show that a lot of people have trouble with. There's a group online, which is an afterlife group, and they're all demonizing Abraham Hicks at the moment, or Esther Hicks, because she's touched on some of these concepts. She's sort of said 90% of the time the person that's been raped has, you know, chosen that through their vibration, and she doesn't not necessarily say through their soul contract, but that's what she's alluding to, because soul contract is not really a word that she uses. And these people are all up in arms saying that she's the devil, that, you know, like, this is bullshit. Because we so want to play the blame game here on earth. It's like, okay, well, what's a better idea? You choose it through your soul contract, or you're just victimized. You're just poor me and I'm the victim and this terrible thing has happened to me. I mean, which is a better thought? And most people say, well, not the fact that, you know, why would you choose such a terrible thing? It just doesn't compute in many people's heads that we would choose the drama that has unfolded in our life. People just can't come at it. Many, not the people that listen to this show, not you guys.
No, I know. But I mean, the other thing they also said is if you experience something in this reality, it's something you haven't experienced in another reality.
Okay.
You know, so if you might experience that in this reality, but in another reality, you didn't have it.
Yeah.
So you know, and it's whatever they did in this reality, in another reality, that might have been done to them. So it's not quite as black and white as I'm maybe saying it. And I know you understand it, but I'm trying to explain it into sort of layman's terms.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got it. You know what I'm talking about.
So what they're saying is you experienced abusive relationship. That was your choice. No right or wrong, just experience. But then what you're saying is that at any point during that time frame, so maybe it was over years, you had choice to stop it, but didn't. Yes. So that's where the free will comes in, right? So
like a choice. I had
like a choice point. Yeah.
They showed me certain times when they gave me the choices. They said we gave you, literally, I remember one day them saying we gave you a choice there, we gave you a choice there, we gave you a choice there, you had the choice there, you had the choice there.
Exactly.
And they were saying it like that to me, and I was literally going, oh.
And you're going, oh.
You know, in the end I literally thought, yeah, all right, own it. Okay, yeah.
Own it. Yeah, own it. Yeah. We've got to own it. We've got to take responsibility for our choices, right?
And then fear
our
and
choices.
everything, the anger goes, you can say, all right, you know what?
Yeah, then we stop blaming the other. Then we stop saying, you hurt me, you hurt me, you hurt me. Then we go, I had a choice to not be hurt anymore. I had a choice to leave and I didn't. And then you go, oh, yeah, I got to take that. Yeah, I'm responsible. Yeah, okay.
It's easier actually because you can think, oh, okay. And then on with the onwards and upwards. Or,
Onwards, yeah.
Onwards, put that behind. It's done now. Forget about it. Let that go.
Let it go.
Yeah, that was explained to me. So that was a pretty, quite a cool.
So the choice to let it go or to hang on to it, another choice. You can hang on to the pain for the rest of your life and be in pain for the rest of your life, or let it go and be happy. Choice. Like, what are you going to choose? And again, you're saying that there are timelines out there that, if you choose the happy, now you're on a different timeline. Now you're going to experience a new reality that's already you've created from your broader perspective, but it's sitting there waiting for you. The joy, the love, the whatever you want's waiting for you. It's been experienced.
It's not a dream. It's actually us. It's coming there. Bring that reality, because they said
bring that reality. Yeah.
Each human can change their own reality.
Say that again. Each human
can change their own reality. They actually even said, if you humans like, you can even change the past.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So if you change the past, then we can all, there's lots of things. And I think their overall, what they were saying is that it's going to be something that this consciousness shift that we're all talking about is this, what we're talking about. Is that
choice.
There's a few of us that are getting it. There's going to be, our next generations coming. Your grandchildren will have a different conception than you.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Look like Stone Age.
Yeah, we look like We look like dinosaurs. Absolutely. The generation that are coming through now are going to look back on our generation and go, really?
Friends, we are living like we did in Enoch's time.
Yeah.
We still pay taxes. We're no different. People think we've moved so much and we are still in the same place. But that's the change. That's the cycle they said that's changing. And they said that, we go through cycles as humans, our essence, and it goes into sort of different cycles. And we've been enlightened, then we've gone into dark, and we've forgotten. Then we get enlightened, and we go into dark, and we've forgotten. And it's one of those. We're coming out of that, and we're going into that. We're coming back into light, and we're going to remember everything that we've had in other dimensions, but we're going to remember them in this reality. So, and it won't be just a few people like there is now. It's going to be, that's where we're going.
Yeah, that's where we're going. I know. It is an exciting time to be alive, I have to say. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's exciting because change. Look, humans, they resist change. People resist change. People love to.
It's fear. I think
fear.
As we've been programmed to fear absolutely everything. We're scared to park in the wrong space. And the beings were basically saying to us, you've given it, they actually said that humans and other beings, this oneness, created this illusion ourselves. And they said, we've created it, you created it, you are part of it, we're part of it, we all created it. It's not that we created it or you created it, we all created it as a never-ending story. And they said that what's this newness that's coming, this shifting consciousness, which is already happening. And they said there's going to be more beings interacting with humans' realities, which is already happening. And it's going to be different. It's going to be more love and sharing, because they more or less want a new image. As for beings showing up, there's identifying two sort of energies here. The energies that people will experience as forms of beings are all from source, but each person will have their own experience and what they want to experience it. But the overall feeling will be of love, because that's when we're talking about oxytocin. So they talked about the oxytocin. I'm going to keep correcting you. You can call it oxytocin if you like. It's not just my cute Australian accent, as people say. Oxytocin is a hormone that is called the love gene, and they're saying that with the DNA changes as we upgrade our systems, that we're going to be secreting more oxytocin, and so we're going to be feeling more loving. Look, I see that in the younger generation. And you can see it, can't you?
Like my daughter, for instance, I'm glad she doesn't watch the show. She hates it when I talk about it.
Yeah,
She's had these two boys. My nose is running, which is funny because Jamie Butler said to me, I said, sometimes my nose runs during the show. And she said, that's just energy running through you. And I'm like, it's literally running out my nose. Anyway, she had these two boyfriends. She hasn't got either of them now. One younger and one older. And the older one in his 40s is a bit more grumpy. He's more complicated and she loves him. And the younger one in his 20s is so loving and accepting. And he's just like this butterfly, he's such a beautiful, blissful being. But interestingly enough, watching her choose between these two boyfriends, she found the older, complicated, grumpier one more interesting. The love bunny.
That one.
Yeah, the love bunny who's just loving, unconditional. It's like, whatever you want to be with other people, that's fine. You know, I love you unconditionally. She didn't find that interesting, you know, but it's just so interesting to see the generations. Yeah.
Grandchildren, because I've got grandchildren. I don't know if you've got grandchildren yet, but my
Not yet.
Are, well, I won't want to put that on you. My grandchildren are 7 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
They are on it. They are on it. You know, my grandson says such weird things to me. Not so much my granddaughter, it's my I remember him coming out literally about a month ago, and my sister was in the kitchen, and he was sitting on the table in the kitchen. He said, Nanny, he said, when I die again, do I have to come back and keep fighting?
Oh.
And I went, no. And you don't have to fight in this now either, babe. I said, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do that again. You don't have to keep doing that. And he was 4 when he said that to me. And the other thing he said to me at about 3.5 is one day he asked me, he said, Nanny, what does dead mean? For 3.5, that was like, okay, here we go. And I couldn't lie, so I can't remember what I said. I sort of spoke about there is no death. And I remember I gave him the truth, but in a child's 3.5 version.
Yeah.
And that's, I said, do you understand that? And he went, yeah. I said, have you got any more questions you want to ask Nanny? He went, no. That was the end of that. That was the end of that conversation.
So let me ask you, Annette, how have your family coped with your new consciousness? Like, because
being friends.
Yeah, well, this conversation, as we've discussed, is a conversation that not everyone can wrap their heads around. And like my family can't, that's for sure. Their reality is their reality. It's what the mainstream media presents, what's in the magazines, and then there is no reality outside that. And you come at them with, there is no gravity, there is no time, there is no death. They just go.
Like that as well. Right, so my mother, bless her, is in her 70s and never was really in. My dad used to work for NASA actually, and he was always into UFOs and all sorts of things. But my mum never was, and she's and never has been. So my mum has. I remember when the beings came, because obviously it was just after my dad passed. It was only about 3 weeks afterwards, and then so before my dad actually got buried or cremated, I was already saying, oh, he's not dead, Mum, you know, I've spoken to 3 beings, but they, you know, I said, I remember saying to her, you might have had them in your days, angels. They've come as, I was really trying to soften it. They've come in different forms, but they've said there's no death, Mum, and I was trying to break it. Anyway, I remember having that conversation with her, and then about 6 months ago, I said to her again, I think it was in the summer, because my sister and I decided to go and look at crop circles. We managed to find them near us. So I said to Mum, we're going to go and look at crop circles. She was like, she's very typical, very, okay, dear. And she said, I don't really understand it. And I went, it's okay, Mum, you don't have to understand it. You just be all right and be happy. You don't have to understand anything that I'm saying. But my sister's on it because she experienced it all with me, because every time anything happens, I phoned her straight up because I ran into shock and I went, oh my God, what do you think they mean by this? Listen to this. What do you think that means? So she had me saying that every day for 3 months straight. But again, she understands it, not on it like I am, but listens.
She listens.
And listen, and that seems to be my circle. They're all, but no one's really on it. I mean, one friend, she is quite amazing. So I remember I said to her about there's been no death and that we all choose our, and she'd lost her mum through cancer. And she got very upset with me, and she's a close friend, and she literally, as she was saying to me, she was crying, but I already knew that it was something that we needed to talk about. And so she said, so what you're basically saying is that my mum chose to go through that pain and suffering. And I said, but you're forgetting that my dad went through it as well. And I went through it. And yes, I have to say, I can't say anything other. I have to say to you that
but it didn't land well.
No.
It doesn't land well. I know.
I have to say, that was then. So now this said person is meditating.
Okay.
Which is unheard of. And I don't say anything. She's meditating. So she's on her own journey. And she doesn't have children, but she has animals, and I'd say she talks to her plants. And so she things like, what she's evolving in her consciousness, as I see, is her connection to nature. And it might not be necessarily what she's listening to, but she's definitely taking it on board, because she's now relaying things back to me, like, oh, I'm talking to my plants now, don't laugh at me. Sort of, and I'm thinking, I'm the last person to be laughing at you if you're telling me you're talking to plants, because, we're all connected. I talk to all my plants and animals.
Yeah.
So, but everybody, what I'm seeing is the little stages, and obviously everybody that is around me that I speak to, like yourself or anybody we come in contact, we already arranged this before.
Yeah.
The timing. So there's no accident.
I know, isn't that interesting? Okay, so going back to it's already happened, and every thought is a memory of an action. I'm sort of thinking about my life, because as I put people on the show, I can't explain it. I don't know why I put people on the show, but it is like a memory of a contract already made. So there are other people that I could speak to that would be a great conversation, but I don't feel to speak to them because we haven't made that agreement. It's really interesting. It's like, so I run on impulse. When you run on impulse, there's no logic to it, but you're actually, it's kind of like you're remembering. It's like a memory of an action already happened. So you just got to tune in.
We are multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
And that's what we forget. And we'll forget. I didn't even know. Looking to me saying that's what we forget. I mean, I didn't even know until like you said, I had it like that.
Yeah.
It was like, enough yet? Well, we're going to wake you up now.
Okay, going right back to the beginning of this conversation, the first thing they said was, have you had enough yet? From your perspective now, what do you think they were saying to you?
I think now I know that I was waiting for them to come. I thought I was searching everywhere, in watching movies that didn't satisfy me, because I thought, no, that's not it. I'm looking for any sort of sci-fi film that come out, I'd want to watch it, or anything. Just anything. I was just on it, feeling that there was something, I don't know what. Searching. It was a definite searching, and it's been a long time. Sorry, what did you ask me again?
They said to you, have you had enough yet? What does that mean to you now?
I think that I've been waiting for them. I was waiting for them.
Have you had enough searching? Have you had enough contrast? Do you want to break out of your fear?
I've had enough of the rubbish.
Really. The rubbish. Well, it's not rubbish, Annette. It's experience that we choose, not good or bad, just experience.
You know what, Karen? The thing is now, it's quite hard to live in the world as we do, and know. I know
there was a young man in our inner sanctum group, and he said exactly the same thing. He said, now that I've awakened, he said, I'm finding it quite hard to be in the world, which is a bit of a trap, because we don't awaken to judge the world as wrong or bad. We awaken to understand that we are the joy we're seeking. We are the love we're seeking. We are the happiness we're seeking. But what happens with a lot of people as they awaken to ever broadening truths or realities is we start to look out at the truths and realities that other people are buying into, a more limited truth or reality, and we start to deem it as wrong, and then we want to fix it, and that's when we get into a whole lot of trouble. We have to allow the world to be as it is, and then just like your friend who's going to push up against you and say you're crazy, you're mad, allow her expansion journey to unfold in the time that it's going to take to unfold. Yeah.
And that's why, that is exactly how I come to
with it. The same with all the rest of humanity. And, when I think about your mum, as you say, after your dad's died, there's no death, and she's just experienced death. Bless her heart. She didn't push against you. Well, hang on, she didn't push
I was
against you.
very tactful. I was very tactful. It was very funny because as I went to speak, my sister was sitting opposite me, and I had said to my sister, because my mum was in floods of tears, and I wasn't crying at that point. I was feeling other things. I was feeling like this energy surging through me, and my mum. The reason why I said it is because she got quite upset, and she looked at me and she went, you know, I know you don't feel it like I. This is before I'd mentioned the beings. She thought, I know you don't feel emotion like I feel emotion, but you know, everybody. Some people are colder than. I remember her feeling, sort of saying like that, and I went, and I looked at my sister because I thought I want to put her out of her pain and say, Mum, you don't have to cry. You don't have to cry. It's, you know, he's all right. He's absolutely all right. But as I went to say it, my sister was looking at me going like this, shaking her head like, don't say it, don't mention the beings, don't mention the beings. But it came out very tactful, let me say. It was more, I sort of spoke about angels and how messengers come, and I sort of very tactfully, because they gave me the words to say, but I knew the words to say to my mum. She's my mum. So I can say things that I knew that she could tap it, which gave her comfort at that moment.
It did.
But then later on, when I'm talking about it, it's forgotten because she was in her own.
I know, it's so interesting. I've thought about this so often, and I've spoken about this on the show too. I was watching my brother have a bit of an explosion recently, and as I'm watching him, I'm inside his thoughts. And like Byron Katie would say, if you believed his stressful thoughts, you'd act like that too, right? So everyone's like going back to we create our own reality. So he's creating his reality, and his reality is I'm upset because he's believing the thoughts in his head, which interestingly enough had nothing to do with me, but he was directing that reality at me. And I was watching him sort of getting angry and sweat and thinking, you know, he's inside a completely different reality than I'm inside right now. Like he's experiencing the world totally different, and yet we're looking at each other, you know what I mean? And I'm experiencing love and compassion, and he's experiencing rage. And so, you know, when you say that, when you don't validate someone's reality, which a lot of spiritual people do, they say, no, that's not right. That's not how it is. This is how it is. Because I know, because I speak to angels or beings or God or whatever. It doesn't change their reality because that's what they're experiencing.
That's right.
So I think one of the hardest things to do is to find language or some sort of vibration so that people can hear you, or maybe they never will. I don't know. You can only live your life the way you can. Pardon?
I remember I actually said to the beings, what am I to do? What am I here to do this? What am I here to do?
Right.
And they actually said, you're here to love yourself.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, oh, that's all right. That's quite a hard thing to do. You know, you think, oh yeah, but actually, that was when they said that. I thought, oh, that's quite. It actually took the burden off me because I thought I don't have to do anything. Even though I've got all these feelings to share, I don't have to share. I don't have to if I don't want to. It's up to me if I want to or not. I've just got to learn to accept and love myself. And that was part of the growth as well. So there was lots in there. There was lots going on.
Big part of the growth, as you said, you know, when you've been believing your stressful thoughts about how you're not enough, not worthy enough, not this enough, not that enough, not enough, not enough, not enough. I remember writing an article once and I said, enough is enough. You're an extension of source energy. How could you never not be enough? You know, enough is enough of the I'm not enoughness.
You will always have enough energy to do what you've got to do as well, even though you. So
there's always enough. Yeah, enough energy, enough time. There's always enough. The illusion that we're not enough, there's not enough, all stories. Look, it's all a story. Okay, I think we've gone through most of their messages. The love genes, humans will still self-heal through the pineal gland, etc. Much is happening, more energy will come to other beings. Aliens, what does this say? Beings as aliens, what a new image of love and helping humans. Oh, aliens want a new image of love and helping humans. I draw over 30 drawings. After each of the messages, I'll ask you to send me some of the drawings and I'll upload them during the show. Understand that my own contract here in Dimension Earth is to share love. Yeah, the aliens told me not to be ashamed of what I'm experiencing, and they still talk in my mind every day. They are with me always and feel and see what I experience as all humans. So yeah, they get to experience what it is to be human through you. Yeah. through us, yeah.
All of us.
So our alien counterparts, I'll call them, don't need to incarnate into this experience or don't need to take on physical form because they get to experience through us, through our brains, through our bodies. They get to experience the sensations. Pardon? Our emotions, yeah.
Is emotion. They said what the whole point of this is to experience emotion.
Emotion.
Which you do. You know, how you label it is your call.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was pretty cool, yeah.
So any last messages from the mob? It's been such a joy to speak to you. You're so much fun. Isn't she gorgeous? Any last messages from the mob before we say goodbye?
I would say live in the moment and try and enjoy every moment because it's meant to be, it's meant to be a lovely illusion. Everything's been given to us. You know, don't judge people. If people want to smoke or they want to drink, that's their contract to do that.
Yeah.
It will evolve to where it needs to go when we're not doing that. But for now, we're in this and don't judge people and let people be.
Look, I'm having a powerful lesson in that at the moment. I've got a friend that doesn't treat herself well in any way, shape or form. And the healer in me really judges that, you know, like the drugs and the smoking and the drinking and the gambling and the everything and the not eating well and not moving. And I'm just watching her get older and sicker and fatter and stiffer and sicker and coughing. And I'm watching this and I'm feeling, like,
It's your friends.
Like, help yourself, I'm thinking. And she doesn't. And then the lesson for me is to just let her be and stop trying to fix her. Just let her be. Because it's hard. It's hard when...
They used to say to me all day, in fact yesterday it was happening, because they kept saying, you can, and there's that old say where they can say, you can, bring the cow to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to understand that there's a contract there, that she's choosing this and that's the experience that she's wanting, and just let it be. And she knows what to do. She does know what to do, and she doesn't do it. So that's her choice, right? That's her choice. But that's hard for me, because it's hard to watch someone you love hurt themselves.
You could ask the beings to intervene a little bit. You could, do it on her behalf.
Well, I have. Don't you worry. I have done lots of things like that. I have to tell you something really interesting. I had this experience yesterday of sitting opposite her as she's smoking and carrying on, and I saw this unbelievable golden light. Unbelievable. I've never seen something quite like this before, because I can see lights around people, right? And I saw this because I'm looking at her and I see it in my periphery, and when you look at it, it disappears. It's so frustrating, but it was so bright, and it had something to do with her. So here am I thinking that I'm the master and she's not, and I sat there and I thought, she's the master and I'm not, right? So who's to say who's right and wrong?
And she's not, you might have been smoking and drinking in your last reality, and she might have been sitting opposite you thinking the same thing.
Maybe. Exactly. We've played this game before.
in your reality means that you've chosen to be in the reality together.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I remember saying, do we have the same, energies on each sort of cycle? And they laughed and they said, well, you have some the same, but of course you're going to have new ones, because each one you want to experience differently. You want
a different experience
every single time. So yeah, I know, it's so deep. I love talking to you. It's really,
look, it's not even another reality where I've had that experience. I did the same as her when I was young. Smoked and drank and took too many drugs and did all things that were bad for my body. And as a young person, I thought I was an invincible and I could do anything. So when you're my age, it's a little different. Anyway. We have to look after these physical forms, because as much as it's all an illusion and a dream.
No, that's right. It's a gift, the body, and you do have to look after it. The beings used to talk about age. I mean, we might have to do another one because it will go on, because they talked about why humans have a fear of getting old.
And what did they say about that?
They said, why do humans have a fear of aging? Don't they know that it's not just this. It's not just this and this is the end. And they would laugh at how we would try and keep young and keep looking. But again, it's all down, like you said, to the moulding. Like my daughter's 26 and thinks she's Kim Kardashian. And all her friends think they're Kim Kardashian. So that's their reality. That's their reality. But I can see glimpses I can see glimpses because she's my daughter, and I know that there's a so I mean, she's already starting to talk about. She said to me the other day, she said something, and she went, "Oh, Mum, you have negative energy. Just keep your negative energy." And I just thought, oh, so we're talking about energies now. Okay, so that's morphine. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. The fact you're aware of it is good. And then she came around 2 days later and decided to tell me about sage and that I needed to sage my house. She's walking around my house saging.
Don't you love it? Don't you love it?
And it's so funny.
I love that the younger generation are on it. I had a cousin of a young friend, a niece of a niece of a friend over not long ago, and she's up with the Joneses and everything, but they're still having that conversation. They're talking about energy and angels and saging and
when I was younger.
Yeah.
Our bum looked big in a pair of jeans and things like that. Not
I know.
Energy, things like that. So you can see it. You can see it in your own children.
Yeah, she's about in her mid-20s, and she has this catering business for like corporate and weddings and parties, and it's all very she and very fabulous. And I have to say, it looks unbelievably beautiful. You should see her website. But she's talking about veganism, and she said, I was talking to this lady that makes these vegan cheeses, and so she offers all this vegan produce along with all the other produce. It's amazing how the world's changing. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
They said nothing stays the same. They went, energy is always changing.
Energy is always changing. Yeah, the only constant in life is change.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the only sure thing there is.
That's a T-shirt. Oh, darling one, thank you so much. And obviously, you've not written this in a book. Are you going to put it in a book? Are you going to put?
I think the book. Yeah, I feel that it will go in a book. I'm still in it. I'm still very much in it, and I feel that and it will come. At the moment, I'm still talking about it, but it's all there. I mean, it's a world. I don't know anything. I'm a mum, a nan. I'm cooking dinners and just watching a bit of TV, and now I'm just like, wow, there's so much. Life has got so exciting all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to chat with Zoe. I can't remember when. I think in a couple of weeks we're going to have her perspective, which will be another perspective. So it's interesting, as we've talked about, we create our own reality through the choices we make in our thinking. And so you've experienced, the two of you, the same thing, but you're going to have two completely different perspectives coming from different realities, right? So it'll be interesting to hear Zoe's perspective too. Thank you, gorgeous one, for being on the show. It's been a joy.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, that was a whole lot of fun with Annette. She is a character. She's a great character. Yeah, as she says, she can't help but share what she's come to know, and not easy sharing information like that, because our poor old linear human minds find it kind of hard to wrap our heads around there being no shape, no time, no death, no gravity, no age. Oh, I guess we're just creating all of it by the choices that we make, and we choose to buy into a particular paradigm or not. But it just opens the doors, doesn't it? It just flies, it just flings open the doors to expansion and choice. Like, wow, we're at choice. Do I want to feel bad? Do I want to feel good? Do I want to age? Do I not want to age? There is ultimate choice in experience that even though it's already happened, we've obviously designed, especially in this time frame, being 2020, we've designed that expansion of choice. Otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, right? If you didn't want to know about your expansion and your expansion of choice, ultimate choice in creating ultimate realities, then you wouldn't be listening to this. It wouldn't come into your awareness if you hadn't already chosen a particular timeline that allows that. So yeah, if you're listening to this, then you have infinite potential realities at your beck and call according to what you choose, what vibrational quality you choose. Do I choose happiness? Do I choose sadness? Do I choose limitation? Do I choose expansion? It's all about the choices. Decisions creates our reality. Or chooses a timeline that's already created. Fascinating stuff, isn't it? But yeah, we didn't go too much into the future, but they said her mob, we're talking about, the more love and more choice and more expansion. Look, we've spoken about that many times on the show, But it is exciting to think about what we're choosing collectively as a humanity. And they said that even though that you might feel alone in this conversation right now, that in the not too distant future, so many more people will be involved in this conversation, which is something my mob, my guides, my beings have told me, that 2020 is really a year of activation. So many people will be waking up to want to have more of these types of conversations. So no more aloneness. I used to sit 20 years ago, 30 years ago, alone in my bed reading my spiritual books, feeling like I couldn't have this conversation with anyone I knew. And now it's the only conversation I have with everybody, even the people that don't want to have it. And interestingly enough, the people that don't want to have this conversation with me have just left my life. They're just like, nah, don't want to speak to Karen anymore, not into her conversation, which is fine with me because they're having another conversation, which I'm not into. So, yeah, that's how it all works. But, as you find old friends leaving, new friends will come. Many, many new friends will come that will want to have this conversation with you. Obviously, if it's your family, you can't get rid of them, but they've chosen you and you've chosen this conversation. So there has to be a dovetailing there somewhere, right? So at some point they've chosen to want to be aware of this expansion, even if they're pushing up against it right now. Otherwise they wouldn't have chosen you for a partner or a sister or a relative of some kind. So eventually everyone will wake up, even if they have to die to do it. It's interesting times. So as I said with Annette on the show, Zoe is coming up. I don't know when. I have to look at my calendar, but she's going to say her perspective. That's happening in a couple of weeks. Oh, I've got so many people booked in for the show, I can't tell you, and more to come. I haven't got it in front of me at the moment. Oh, here we go. When's Zoe coming on? Oh, in 2 weeks. Next week. Who am I talking to next week? Penny Kelly's coming back on the show next week. I love Penny Kelly. I love Penny Kelly. We were going to get some courses organised this year, at the beginning of this year, but she just decided she's way too busy. We'll try and get that organised maybe at the end of this year or maybe next year, some online courses. The information that she talked about with Dr. Levengood, the neurophysicist, she's got this unique ability of translating this consciousness information into science and all her many experiences. So we want to get that happening at some stage. Don't know when that's going to happen. So she's coming on the show next week, and then Zoe's going to be on the week after, which is Annette's friend, and we'll hear her perspective. And who's after that? Judy Carroll's coming on, the Zeta connection. Now, Judy has her beings are the Zetas. She's amazing. She's written quite a few books. And then who's coming on after that? Oh, look, there's so many people coming up. David Kennett about the land. Fascinating man about regenerating the land. Michael Tamora is coming back on the show. I saw a comment on YouTube this morning. Underneath the Inner Sanctum, the snippet of the Inner Sanctum, he was in our online groups a few weeks ago, and she said, I hope you're having Michael back on the show. Yes, I am having Michael back on the show. He's coming up in a few weeks, and I want to expand on some of the things that we talked about in the Inner Sanctum, like that experience of the source and the bridge. And anyway, we'll get into that conversation, and also different levels of people awakening in different consciousnesses, like he was talking about. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. And Catherine Madden's going to come on the show, the ET lady. She's amazing. She's a relative of that famous ET case back in the 60s. I can't remember what they're called. The famous ET case. But anyway, she is a hypnotherapist, and she's spoken to many, many, many experiences, and she has her own experiences, and she's a beautiful lady. I think it was F. Tock, what was her name, that was on the show, that said that she really helped her when she awoke. She had her experiences. Mike coming on the show. He's another guy. Paul Selig's coming back. It's been 5 years since I've spoken to Paul Selig. He channels his books. Mandatory reading. If you're listening to this, mandatory reading. I love Paul's books. They're all channeled. I think he's got 5 or 6 of them out now. The Word, knowing your worth, all mastery, channeled information, hard to wrap your head around, but mandatory reading. Anyway, Paul's going to come back on the show, and lots more. So I hope you stay for the show, and people coming into the inner sanctum. Blair Steyer is coming in on the 9th and 10th of February. He channels Tabash, who is a spirit guide, basically, who full body channels through Blair. And so we'll talk to both of them. 2 for the price of 1, isn't that great? We get 2 guests for the price of 1, Blair and Tabash. Anyway, and so if you want to get to meet him and listen to his messages, he very much talks about how we are the creators of our reality and being more connected to our God essence, our source. Lots of things. He's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teacher from New Zealand. Watch the show I did with Blair. It's a beautiful show. He shares so intimately about his experience with his wife. It's really touching. It's really beautiful. And of course, if you want to meet me in the Inner Sanctum, I'm on every week, every couple of weeks. You can quiz me and my mob, and we can nut out some of these concepts inside a group situation and get different points of view. It's a fun ride. The Inner Sanctum is so much fun, and the people that are coming in this year are just wonderful. We've had quite a few new sign-ups this year, and they're all amazing. We had a session a couple of days ago, and there was a few new people online, and they were talking about their experiences. A couple of them was talking about their experiences with Paul Selig, having read his books and done his workshops. And so we nut over some of the conversations and concepts and sort of expand on them and talk about them. It's really fun. I love it. Anyway, love you all, and thanks again for watching. As always, I'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.